Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. You know, many times parents come to me with so many questions about how do I do this with my kid? How do I teach them that? And how do I make sure that? And often I see that it is our anxiety to make sure that we are doing a great job that drives those questions versus something that's actually going on with the kid. Our parental anxiety to make sure our children succeed in life, that they stay happy, productive, connected, is really what drives most of our questions, our confusions, and our frustrations. Sometimes we're just making everything too overcomplicated. Well, if you're a parent who overthinks, if you're a parent who is overzealous, if you're a parent who wants to do it just right, well, then you're going to get a lot out of this episode. Coming up next, a mother who wants to know what's the best way to raise her son with a spiritual connection. Joining me now is Kate. She's the mother of a 5-year-old son and wants to know how to raise him with a spiritual connection. Hi, Kate. Welcome. So tell me a little bit about what you want from this session.
Hi, it's really nice to be here. I was raised Mormon. My husband was raised Catholic, and we are no longer in those religions. Our parents forced us. And what we want is to raise our son with a spiritual connection to himself and to the world, but I guess not under the confines of religion. And we're just we are both spiritual, more so me. And just want the tools and the words to say to him so that he has that inner connection.
I think your answer is already self-evident. You don't really have to do anything to foster a spiritual connection because our children already have it. They already have a connection to themselves and the earth and animals and plants. It's us who sever them from that. And we do that through, organized religion, or we do it through fear, intimidation, control. And if you don't impose on a child's way of being, their natural way of being, it will be connected because they came wired to be connected to themselves. So I would just reinforce that. If they ask you, Mom, how come we don't pray or we don't go to church or synagogue or temple or mosque? You can say, because we don't need to. God is inside you, or you can just connect to yourself. We don't have to go to a place to be connected. It's all here. Everything you need is right inside you. You can say things like that just reinforce that everything he needs is within him, and he just needs to look inside. You can say things like, our religion is kindness. Our religion is compassion. Our synagogue is nature. Right? There's lots of ways you can enforce or, reiterate or highlight this notion that the world is his sanctuary and he is his own greatest ally and his best friend, and he doesn't need to look outside of himself.
That makes sense. I guess really I just want him to have that connection within, so that he can just, go inside, because it's true. If we just listen, the answers are there and the guidance is there. And at one point we were saying to him, you can ask the universe or you can ask God for help, right? We just gave him those words and kind of briefly told him what that is and stuff. And then once he was launching a monster truck, and he wasn't landing it. And he was like, I'm going to ask the universe for help. And we're oh man. And it worked. He asked us universe, help me land this. And then he did. And then a couple other times he didn't. And we're the universe is still there, but it just might not land until,
right. And that's why it's tricky. It's because he's too young. And that is actually, if you don't mind me saying, not really effective to tell him to ask God or the universe, because that's going to remove his own agency. So what you can say is, you are the universe, or you can help yourself, or you can find your own answers, or you can think about your own solutions rather than create this false dependency on somebody on the outside or something, some force, some mysterious force that we all know sometimes it works for us and sometimes it doesn't. So you don't want to create that crutch, especially if you yourself don't believe in it. So you have to be careful what you put in your child's minds, just like your parents put stuff in your mind and then you eventually rejected it. You want to be careful and mindful about your way of presenting things, because then children become very literal.
We realized that was not helping. But now what I'm saying, which is like you reiterated that, I'm just trying to say to him, like, within, like, trust William. Like, that's what I'm saying to him. Just trust William. But I guess one thing so my mom, a long time ago, she told me this story about how she was in this really difficult spot and she heard the Holy Ghost. And like, that was the word she used, but she heard the Holy Ghost tell her, put your hand here. And I always thought that, I want to have that too. And eventually I do. Like, eventually I did have that. And I still do. Like, if I really need guidance, I just go within and I hear that voice. And I mean, that's something I really want to cultivate in him. I say, like, listen to your heart. And I feel like that's clear. Maybe, maybe not, but maybe when he gets older, it will be. But that's something I really want for him to have. So I guess you're saying just continue to do that. And then eventually, as time goes on, he'll have that naturally in him.
Yeah, I think because you grew up with this Mormon upbringing, although you've given that up, you feel you need to replace it with something. And it's not really necessary. You're worried that if you don't say the right things, and if you don't keep focusing on that he's somehow not going to have that. Children have it naturally. If you or we as parents don't transplant them from their own inner knowing. You don't have to keep saying, trust William. You don't have to keep saying, listen to William. You just have to listen to William. Like, you just have to trust him. You have to just show it. He is already there. The reason children stop being connected to themselves is because parents teach them that disconnection. You're saying, trust William, just show him. You can just say, I trust you, right? He doesn't have to do anything different. He's already at that place. Children have this trust in themselves. We take them out of their trust. So I think the bigger question is, what is your anxiety? You keep saying, I'm worried that he won't have this, or I really want him to have this. You're coming at this with already the glass half empty, a sense of lack. And that's what I always encourage parents to look at. Okay, what is your anxiety here? That if he didn't have this, or if I didn't say this, what would happen? What would happen?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I already know it. I just don't want him to be disconnected from his true self. And I guess I didn't realize that, like, obviously, I mean, I know that naturally he has that, but I was disconnected from myself, like, as a kid, but I always had like a soul compass that was guiding me. I want to do what I can so that he has that, because I don't want him to listen to the world. I want him to listen to himself.
I love that. And that has nothing to do with a spiritual connection. That just has to do with really conscious parenting that allows a child to go within and trust themselves. And you can do that without using any big words. You can just show him from your behavior that you trust this little boy. Of course, not to make big decisions, but he can make little decisions. Do you want chicken or do you want spaghetti? Do you want pasta or do you want cereal? Allowing him to look within himself for the answer.
Yeah.
If he comes running to you, Mommy, should I wear my jeans or my shorts? And you not giving him the answer and saying, I trust William to make his choice, right? These are the ways you hand over the power of whatever choices he can make back to him. This has nothing to do with spirit. This has all to do with really conscious parenting. Where's the spirit here? There's just him.
Yes, it's already inside. So it's just choosing to listen to that, right?
That's it. So you don't even have to give it a fancy word. You don't have to call it universe, God, spirit. It's just conscious parenting, which is the essence of what I teach, which is every child has an essence and an inner knowing. They just need to be reminded of it and return to it and not abducted from it. So if you're conscious of this and you keep reminding him that he knows, within his age range, of course, he can make the little choices. You can tell him, Mommy trusts you. What do you want to do right now? And in little ways, you give him that power. Then he will grow confident that he can rely on himself. And this doesn't mean he cannot rely on you. It doesn't mean he doesn't need a community, but he can also be self-directed.
I love that. I mean, it's easy and it's simple. I mean, it's not because conscious parenting is not easy, but obviously that's my like main goal and purpose for him. So I'm just going to focus more on that.
Yeah, I think because you both came from religious background, you are now trying to replace the organized religion with quote unquote spiritual connections. But in that, you may get all mixed up and cloudy because what is a spiritual connection? Ultimately, it's just connection. And connection is readily available to each child because they come wired for connection. So if you're present, if you're in the here and now, if you're fully awake, if you're alive, if you're joyful, if you're abundant, that is spiritual connection. So don't muddy it with these esoteric, vague words. In reality, it's just being present, being here, and being abundant. Coming from a place of abundance, that is the ultimate way to live. So if you can just focus on that, everything else takes care of itself.
Okay. I'll keep focusing on that. I feel like we're doing a good job. Like we just let him be who he is as much as we can. I mean, obviously following the book, The Conscious Parent, right? It's like we are giving him limits.
Yes.
But we're also like, you be you, like as much as we can.
Yes.
And I feel like he is thriving in so many ways. I'm so grateful for your book because that was one of the first ones that my husband and I read. And we were like, I don't want to swear, but we're like, oh, wow. Okay.
Well, look at the both of you. You'll have already broken family patterns. You've already let go of your stereotypes and your belief systems. That is conscious parenting in action. And you are already allowing him to be who it is he is. This is it. Actually, conscious parenting is really simple. It's only complicated because of all these institutional dogma that we've indoctrinated ourselves and our children with. Take it all out, and it's really simple. And that's what you're doing in your life. You're taking out institutional dogma, even though it goes against the grain of modern culture. You are being brave to fight tradition and the status quo and find your truth. That is your greatest gift to your child. Look, we have found who it is we are, and we're not going to impose on you the dogma and traditions that were imposed on us. Wow, you both are pattern breakers and generational cycle breakers, and you should be proud of that. Now you can just go with the flow. It's easy from here on because you've already done the hard work. Don't overcomplicate it with big words.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because that is what we've done and what we're consciously trying to do continually. So I feel like, yeah, that's really helpful.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for listening.
Many people, when they first hear about conscious parenting, they think it's so incredibly challenging and difficult. And it is, but it only is because of the ways we have just ridiculously complicated life in the modern world. If we truly understand the essence of conscious parenting, it is about going back to nature, our nature and the principles of nature. And once we do, we realize that, life can be beautiful, simple, eloquent, and quite easy to flow with if we just remove all the pressures that culture puts on us and all the ways we should be. Take all that out, then all we are left with is pure connection. And conscious parenting, in essence, is being completely who it is we are in our authenticity, connecting to another person's authenticity, our children's authenticity. At its core, it's really about being present, being attuned, and letting go of society's dogmas. Coming up next is a mother who has many, many questions around how to create boundaries around technology and more. Joining me now is Leanne. She's the mother of 4 children and wants to know what's the best way to create boundaries around technology. Hi, Leanne. Welcome. Tell us what's going on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Well, we are a lower tech household, but after the COVID era, each child in my school district has been given their own Chromebook, which is, of course, very generous and it's a very useful tool. However, we're having a hard time creating those boundaries around time limits and the amount of content and what's really teachable content and what's really just kind of mind numbing YouTube zombie content.
Yeah, I don't know whether I can have an amazing solution for you because this is how our schools have really contributed to the demise of our children's well being by giving them the technology that they don't have the capacity to regulate themselves.
Right.
So, my generic answers to you, without knowing the specifics, are create an antidote of good outside time and exercise time and connection time and have upper limit boundaries that they have to be off by a certain time. You know already what the boundaries need to be. Unfortunately, this is the state of affairs. Of course, I can tell you, maybe don't let the YouTube app be on the iPad, but you also know how easy it is for them to put the YouTube app on and off and on and off.
Right.
So how old is your oldest that you're struggling with this issue about?
I would say it's a much bigger issue with him. He's 11 and a half. So he's right now entering that kind of preteen age. He's extremely bright and he knows how to use all of it, probably much better than I even do. And I'm pretty savvy. So on the one hand, I understand what you're saying where, I can set a timer. We can say you're on it for 30 minutes. But on the other hand, I also don't want to pretend like he doesn't need to know how to use these devices. I mean, going forward, all of our children probably will need to have these kind of technological capabilities for any job that they'll do. So it's about finding that balance because I want them to know, I don't want to shelter them too much or put them in too much of a bubble, but it's just so consuming, like you said.
Yeah, I think it's too early for them to really know. I wouldn't fall into that trap. I think you have another 5 years before you need to worry about it. First and foremost, they already know way more than you and I know. Secondly, if you can limit him, I didn't realize your oldest was so young. I would 100%, he is too young for unremitting access to YouTube or social media.
He's not on social media.
Right. But any World Wide Web stuff without your strict monitoring and your strict vigilant observation. So I would say in terms of, every kid needs to know and at least it's building skills and he's going to need it. I would say you can wait on that for another 3-4 years at least.
Right.
So take that away from you.
Okay.
Don't think of his future. Don't think of the future. Think of the present. An 11-year-old's brain is extremely malleable and permeable and elastic, and they are easily influenced. So daily exposure to these videos that are not monitored by you or approved by you could have a cumulative negative effect. He's too young to need to know this stuff for his future job. You don't have to worry about that. Let him be in a bubble. Let them be protected. They will learn overnight when they're ready. They are too young to be exposed, in my opinion. So
right.
I would encourage you to keep the bubble that you have created and be extremely worried if the bubble is burst.
Right.
Go with your instinct that this is a negative thing. Go with your instinct that you want to protect them. Don't fall into this trap that, well, every kid needs technology and this is going to help him in the future. He won't even get to the future with an intact brain at this rate, right?
Absolutely.
With what our children are going through. So err on the side of great caution.
That is one of the things that we really struggle with. My husband, actually, we were living in Manhattan, a big city life, a very fast life. And with our son, we realized very soon he had so much energy pent up and he was starting to develop almost kind of nervous habits because we were constantly telling him, you can't jump, you can't bounce the ball, you can't run back and forth in the apartment because, the neighbors are complaining. So we actually left the city and now we live in a more rural country environment. We have a few acres and chickens and horses and dogs. And so we tried so hard to get out of that pressure and that kind of, I don't want to call it rat race, but in a lot of ways it feels like just a contained rat race. And post COVID, it's like undoing all of the work that we worked so hard to physically escape from. So, I struggle with the idea of, as long as he's in this kind of public school system, this is his option. And this is all of their options versus taking it kind of on my responsibility and maybe taking him out of that system. But it is quite daunting, actually, to take his whole education and put it on me where I'm not a trained teacher.
Yeah, it's really tragic that we parents have only these choices. So have empathy for yourself. You cannot recreate a perfect world for him in order to keep him protected. It is what it is. It's okay. But at home, I would keep with your instincts. Your instincts are dead on, fantastic. How lucky your children are that they have a parent or both who see the rat race for what it is and are willing to take them out of it. Don't get too into despair either about the public school system. It's okay. Kids will survive. But at home, I would keep your instincts on point and follow them and don't give in to any pressures from the outside world, because you know better than most that the outside world will be relentless in its focus on capitalism and achievement and getting children to be successful in a very traditional sense. You don't have to play by that playbook. You can create your own rules. You can find your own way and teach your children that they don't have to subscribe. And that's why you live where you do. And that's why you're changing your ways of being at home. And if they complain, well, Jacob's dad does this and, Sam's dad does that. And, Rebecca's mom does that. You can say, well, I'm not any of them. And this is who we are. And as long as you're consistent and unified with your partner, your children will be better off in the long run.
I love that. Do you find that the pressure that they kind of feel in public schools to achieve certain grades and to get certain marks and the constant testing, I notice, especially with my older son, he's very motivated by the number that's on these kind of report cards, progress reports every few weeks. And he is very invested and he puts a lot of pressure on himself. Now, my husband and I don't put that pressure because we know as long as he's trying his best, that's what matters, and that he's applying himself and absorbing the information. I don't care as much about what number he brings home, but he cares about it because he's feeling that pressure. Do you have any kind of advice or any kind of, I guess, like vocabulary instead of, I don't care what your grades are?
It's tricky because now he has his own relationship with that system. And it's unfair to tell him not to care because everybody around him at school is saying that he should care. So you can say that, I know it's confusing for you because mom and dad don't care or dad and I don't care, but everybody in school is saying that you need to care. So I want you to know that you can decide how much you care. I see that you care, but you don't have to care as if your life depends on it. You don't have to get depressed about it.
Right.
You can care, but just know dad and I, we don't care that much. That's all you can do. Now he's in the system. Now you can't make him feel bad about caring.
Right.
Maybe it's not entirely true. Maybe you would care if he was getting an F grade.
Right. I've never been in that position, so it's hard to say because he's always bringing home, thank God, he's trying his best and he's a bright boy. But I like that, giving him the kind of responsibility and how much he wants to care.
Right. It is his responsibility. And you can tell him that there will be a time when he will get a B grade or a C grade. And that's okay. And just you can prepare him, that it's not the end of the world. You're not supposed to be good at every single thing. And you can say, wow, you're good at every single thing. I was not good at everything. I got B grades and C grades and I was fine too.
Right.
Maybe you can just, casually throw it in there that you got some poor grades and you were fine and you survived and you were quite happy. And just show him that there's another way to have grades, that you don't have to get the best grades every time.
Right. And we have mentioned to him also that after he's out of this format and this very rigid framework of the school system, you're very rarely graded to such minute detail for projects and, things that you take on later in life. So
But that is just so far in the future. He doesn't understand. His entire world is about this. So don't even talk about the future. Just give him tools to ease off the pressure in the present moment. Keeping on saying, I don't care about grades is not going to help. You can just let him know, everybody cares in a different way. Dad and I care 5 on 10. You care 11 on 10. That's your choice. You don't have to care that much. It's okay. And then you can just, instead of saying, I don't care at all, which is not true. We all care. It's just how much do we care? And how important is it? And you guys are just balanced about it. But he has to learn that.
I feel like he's kind of an old soul and he's already thinking ahead. Oh, well, what about college? And what if, this job that I'll get? And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, no job interviewer is going to come back and check your 6th grade transcript for what you got in social studies. But of course, he's thinking that his transcripts now plus A plus B equals C, like if he'll get the good grades and he'll get a good university education and he'll get a good job. But we both know that that's not really how the world works anymore. It might have been at one point, but that's not really how it is now. I'm torn because I had that very traditional path and my husband didn't. So he sees both sides of, you can either go that route or you cannot. But do you have any advice on how we can navigate what that might look like?
Yeah, I will say that maybe he's too preoccupied with things that an 11-year-old typically doesn't need to be. So you can just let him know, we don't have to think about that right now. We are here right now. Instead of going deeper into explaining things to him, he shouldn't, I say this with a caveat, right, with quotes, he shouldn't be even bothered about this. So when you find that he's thinking all these grown-up things, he's too young. And this is a sign of a very kind of perfectionistic, anxious, mind. He needs less pressure. So you need to tell him, we don't have to think about that now. Let's talk about that in 5-6 years. Instead of further clarifying, just don't think about it right now. It shouldn't be on his mind. He needs to enjoy his childhood. And it seems like he's taken on this very adult role in your house, maybe because he has 3 younger siblings. He's parentified himself too much. He's acting too grown up, which is not healthy for him. Mm-hmm. So your job as a parent is just to remind him that he's a child. He can come back into the present moment, enjoy his life. We will think about that in 5 or 10 years.
Do you find that sports and extracurricular activities and things kind of like that help keep children in more of like a childhood type of role?
I don't think there's a prescription. Sometimes sports are a nightmare for children who are not athletic or competitive. So I don't know whether it's so much an exactly specific thing as much as it is the parents' attitude towards the children, the mindset at home that we are playful, we're having fun, we're in the present moment. Then whatever the child does is kind of the icing. The main thing about childhood, which gets so easily, lost in the maelstrom of busy adult life, is the capacity for joy and playfulness and enjoying the present moment. And you just have to bring him back there. But parents think that it's their job to prepare the child for life and raise a successful adult. And that is not entirely true, according to me. What's more relevant is that the child enjoys their childhood and is a child.
I feel like we definitely need to hear more of that.
Well, it's hard if you and your husband were very responsible and super achieving parents.
I was absolutely a perfectionist and I was always striving and an overachiever in a lot of ways. And my husband had to grow up very fast. And he was the youngest, but he had to grow up very fast.
And I think because both of you did not have a carefree, fun, silly, playful, non-goal-oriented childhood, like a childhood for the sake of childhood. That is a new concept in today's world. Like, how about your child just be a child? I think because you both did not have a childhood, you don't value that as much. And without realizing it, are taking your kids quickly into adulthood way before that's healthy.
Because there are 4 of them. And because he is the oldest, sometimes he sees the younger siblings that probably are just more in this kind of carefree state and They're having very different experiences. I can see it in the same house because of their birth order and because of maybe the pressures that we've put on them or they've put on themselves. But do you think that I can kind of, I don't want to say turn the clock back, but just kind of encourage him to engage more with his younger siblings and just to have fun more? Or is it?
Well, I don't know whether you can push him to engage with his siblings, but I certainly think you can encourage him to be more lighthearted and fun and silly. And again, it's how you are with him. If you're fun, lighthearted, and silly, he will kind of take that in. But if you keep seeing him as a grown-up or like he's the oldest son, then you're going to actually make him feel like he needs to be super responsible and super adult, and he's not ready for it. And it may not appear for a few years, but it will backlash, because when children grow up too fast, there is a side effect of that. And you want him to grow naturally, not in a forced, artificial way.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and bringing your questions. I hope that helped.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
So many of us parents, in our zealousness and our great desire to raise successful adults who are prepared for life, we kind of rob our children of their childhoods, and we overcomplicate things, and we don't even realize that we are. You know, childhood is a really special stage in our lives. It is the only stage where we get to be in the present moment, not thinking about the future, fully expressive and exploratory of our life, our surroundings, hopefully in a safe way. When we take away that safety and that sense of adventure and playfulness and joy by regimenting our children's lives and making them think about the future and their goals, and, you know, giving them all this test taking and making them sit in these chairs and confining them to, you know, these very linear timetables and schedules, we don't realize, but we are literally short-circuiting very important developmental stages that childhood provides. So I caution all parents of children under the age of 12 to really ease off their children. Allow your children to be children, to enjoy the present moment without burdening them with future-based goals that are really adult-focused. Childhood is a magical state. Allow your children to experience it while they are in it. That is their right. And let's not rob them of this very special, once-in-a-lifetime experience. I have recently created a very safe and conscious sanctuary for parents, for humans to connect in. And the reason I created this is because I realized that so many parents, so many humans were feeling isolated, feeling disconnected, and not knowing where to turn. Not everyone could book an individual session with me, and I couldn't be at all places at the same time. And I would be getting DMs after DMs from people, you know, Dr. Shefali, I wish you had a community. I wish you had a place where I could ask you questions. Well, I decided to create that community. It is called the Conscious Circle. The link is in the show notes below. If you are someone who wants greater community, greater connection, to meet other like-minded and like-hearted individuals just like yourself, and be connected more to me, get more guidance, more support, more insight from me and my team, check out the Conscious Circle. It is a unique and special, safe space, a sanctuary for community, for connection, for growth, for consciousness. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, I hope I see you on the next one of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.